What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 349. Is that right, guys? We're almost at 350.
Yeah,
That's
which is
Yeah.
our
it's
famous
yeah,
last episode.
it's the second to last episode,
Yeah.
guys.
Jesus.
we have no
If
we have
if
no
anyone's
plans.
if anyone's been listening to the show all along, they know that back in episode 175, Ronald said that we were halfway done, which I checked, and according to the ancient scriptures, that's a podcast promise.
Yeah.
So
That's like
technically
a
that
blood
means
oath right there.
if we were halfway done at 175, that 350 is our last
Yeah.
episode. So I don't know. I mean, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed the ride. This is
Yeah, it's make it
349,
worth it,
second
guys.
to last. We're not going to make a big deal out of it or anything, but you
Nah.
know,
Goes quietly into the night. I'm Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show. As always, I'm joined by
Ron?
and John, for the second to last time.
second to last time. Let's keep that reminder going.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about a couple some new releases that we've seen. Also, this week's required viewing was my pick from last week, Animal Kingdom. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but news, trailers, things like that we like to go through at the top of the show. Ronald, you wanted to mention which is a kind of a huge announcement, but you were mentioning it's kind of like low key not being promoted a ton, is the announcement of Top Gun Maverick coming home to PVOD in some form or fashion in the next couple weeks.
Yeah,
Or
August 20. Yeah, next Tuesday, August 27th, 23rd. Oh my goodness, that's my birthday.
Carry the two. Yep, 23rd.
Yeah, 23rd, and it's going to be pretty cool. I heard that it's at least going to be some IMAX scenes. I don't think the whole movie is going to be in IMAX like all the Disney Marvel stuff that's been coming out, but I think it has some IMAX elements. Of course, going to have Atmos sound. And it's probably going to cost between $20 and $30. So be on the lookout for that if you want it then. Probably a couple months later. A physical's coming out in November, they're saying. Not sure when that fits into any of the services it's supposed to go to. So we'll see. We'll see how that information plays out beyond PVOD being on the 23rd and a physical coming out in November.
Right.
Yeah, so that's exciting, man. I didn't get to see it in the movies. It'll be nice to.
I can't wait for you to watch
home.
it.
Oh my God, I can't wait, man.
It's one of those. It's. I mean, I don't know what movie's gonna even come close to this movie the rest of this year. I mean, maybe
Really?
Wakanda Forever. If you believe in the Avatar of it all, I don't know if that's got any kind of presence or legs like it used to, but Top Gun Maverick is a unicorn, like, in terms of box office and the multiplier, the legs that it has had through the entire summer. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no question it's the movie of the summer, putting Marvel movies to shame, like big Jurassic Park World movies to shame, big animated things to shame. It's like, it's a Top Gun sequel that did that. And I would be curious to see if Wakanda. I think it's either Wakanda Forever, and I don't think, but I wouldn't be shocked if somehow Avatar caught on again. But I think the really only competition is Wakanda Forever. But I do think your comment about like, and we were talking about this in our text thread about like it not really being like crazy promoted or like everywhere next week. It's because like low key Paramount really is trying to get this movie to $700 million domestic. Which it seems highly likely that it will get there. And they, even this past weekend, they did a big promotion where they re-released it into IMAX screens, so like, I think with an introduction, maybe with some additional scenes. I forget exactly what the announcement was, but I know one of the movies I went to see over the weekend, which had been on an IMAX screen for the week it had come out, like, all these other movies are losing screens. And this past weekend, a part of it is because Paramount got Top Gun Maverick back into IMAX. And I think they're doing that, a big push to get this movie to 700 million. Obviously it's way over $1 billion worldwide already, which is just absurd. Like, I don't know that anybody was thinking or saying that the Top Gun sequel would, not only be the biggest movie of the year, the biggest movie of Tom Cruise's career, and because this movie has bypassed, the normal or the new normal of like 17 to 45 days for a PVOD option or a streaming option. And it's been in theaters all summer, so it's kind of gnarly that, like, you know, it managed to do that and managed to make a ton of money. And at the time that it's coming out on PVOD, it will still have a pretty large presence in premium formats in theaters still. It's kind
Wow.
of gone away and come back. It's just crazy. It doesn't happen anymore. So um I can't wait to watch it again. I didn't get a chance to get my parents to see it. I know they will love it, and I can't wait to watch it with them once it's available next week. Um, but yeah, it's just like the movie that just keeps going, man. It's like dropping like 19% week over week in its like seventh or eighth week of release, which is
Wow.
just absurd. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
making $1 million a day still almost.
That's insane.
Yeah. Um, what else? Any other news? Any other trailers before we go into the required viewing?
I mean, I guess it's worth mentioning since we've talked about it in the past, but it was in the news that Ezra Miller is
Oh, right.
seeking, help for mental issues, kind of unspecified, but obviously every other day or so for a while there was a new headline of something there. So I don't know. I think that's, I want to believe this is a real story of a person getting help for problems, but it feels a little bit like it's a publicity timed thing. I mean, I'm being very cynical perhaps, but it feels very much like this is a way to get ahead of the story, the question, why is the Flash movie still on the schedule? Why haven't they done anything about this? But if they can say, well, this person who's troubled is seeking help, that helps by the time the movie's ready to go. Maybe they can have done some reputation repair to Ezra Miller because they are still the star of this movie. I didn't know if you fellas had any gut feelings about that or if you wanted to say anything at all.
I mean, I just think it's about time that it's just been addressed publicly. It does feel like publicity at this point, but in the interest of just having the understanding that they're getting help, I think if that's actually genuine and they are, and the studio in any way is helping them accomplish that, I think the fact that they've acknowledged it publicly and issued an apology of some sort,
Yeah.
is just a good step.
Right.
It is publicity, no doubt, but I want to assume positive intent, and I want to assume that this really is an effort to, yes, save this movie, I'm sure, but also to hopefully get this person help, because they definitely obviously need it in some way, shape, or form, and I'm hoping they want it too. So I'm happy to hear that addressed in some way, because it really has not been at all in a long time, and it's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What did you have to say, Ron? Anything on that?
I feel about the same. I mean, I guess it's too early to tell how genuine it was. I mean, I think I would have rather heard them talk than read a statement.
Sure.
But also, they might not be in a space to be so present, at the time, especially if it's, rehab is one of those things, like, there's layers and layers to it, because they may be completely insulted that they've been kind of they get surrounded by the loved ones and they're like, hey, it's time for an intervention, you need help, and that's a thing. So if it was just their publicist, I'm okay with that. And after maybe, the movie isn't coming out for another year, so if I hear from Ezra in the next 6 months, before the 6-month blitz until the movie starts, I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. Give them some time to reflect and get better, and I'm all about rehabilitation. So I'm happy. I'm happy that there's a start. Cool.
It's a bad situation, but yeah, hopefully it's progress.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go into this week's required viewing. I'm glad you guys got it in under the wire. It sounds like, Ronald, maybe you were up against the deadline there, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad at least you accomplished it. I don't know how you. I've kind of talked a bit about how I felt about the movie last week, but I picked Animal Kingdom, which is the 2010 film from David Michaud, who Ben Mendelsohn, Guy Pearce, Joe Edgerton, Jackie Weaver, probably the names that most people would recognize. But What did you guys? You neither of you had seen it, right? That was the
Mm.
agreement. Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I was familiar with certain aspects of it, but other things, no, not at all. So I
Okay.
must not. I mean, I would have thought maybe I had seen some of it, but I don't think I
Sure.
did. I think I just knew the kind of pedigree of it and knew, like you said, some of those people that were in it that have now become much more, you know, mainstream names
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Ben
Big
Mendelsohn
careers.
and Joel Edgerton. Um,
So yeah, what did you guys think about it? What any feelings? First watch.
are you cooking up something, Ronald? It looked like you were about to say something. I shouldn't want to jump
um,
in if you were saying something.
I love a small time crime story.
Yeah,
And this was one of those movies that could have cost a ton of money or maybe cost nothing, and it's really just depends on the director's eye. I mean, this
Right.
is a one of those movies that had stakes. It was just well written. You know, when the heat gets turned on each character and things get out of hand, it really feels like there's real stakes in it. And I'm all about that. I couldn't figure out what it was that kept building the tension, and then I kept thinking about some of the shots that took place. Like when one of the shots that sticks out in my mind is when there's an exchange of money in the supermarket, and it's like a far shot. You can hear the audio, and a person comes in between them, and just it's like, oh, sorry, love, while they're talking.
Yeah.
It's just the little things like that that let you know that this is they're just people in a town doing weird shit. It's like they've chosen a life of crime, and it can happen anywhere. The exchanges can happen anywhere. The gunfights can happen anywhere. And that feels a little more raw than your average uh, movie if it doesn't show small town crime like that. Like there's something about that
Right.
really stuck with me. Overall, I thought it was great. At the end, I was like, "That's it." I wish there was more.
Yeah.
God damn it! But yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool.
but the ending is a good example of the sort of suddenness of the key turns in this movie. They're very
Yeah.
sudden and almost filmed in a way that's not what you would expect. Like there's two uh, main characters that die in that kind of sudden, unexpected way, including right at the very end, and then closer to the beginning. I guess we're kind of spoiling these things as we talk about them. But Joel Edgerton's character, I did not
Right.
expect him to go out as quickly as he did,
Right.
and in the way that he did, so much so that you almost can't believe it just happened.
Yeah.
But what you said, Ronald, the fact that this is like small time crime, and what they're trying to do is usually it's kind of vague, like all the pies that this family has their fingers in and how everything works, but all you can kind of see is that there is this sort of ruthlessness, and like Jackie Weaver in particular gets to play this kind of edge to her character that you might think at first she's this kind of sweet grandma type, and then you gradually realize how much more of a player she is. And I think that's, again, it's all part of what you were saying, Ronald. It's this sort of small town. It's a family crime kind of gang, and the stuff they're involved in. Nothing too grand. There's no big heist they're trying to
Right.
pull. There's no major deal that's a big plot focus. It's just about like staying alive once these turns of events start to make things go south for this family, and like the different attempts to maybe get revenge, and how that then blows up in your face. It all is very you know street level crime, and again, sometimes you have to kind of check the context of what people are saying to even understand exactly what has just happened, or you wait a couple scenes and you can tell, oh, I get it, I get what they're reacting to and why they're reacting this way. It starts off like the is it the Codys, is that the name of the family?
Mm-hmm.
But between them and the cops, there's this sort of warfare that breaks out about halfway into the movie that is just crazy. But the way that scene was played with the kind of decoy car they set up in the middle of the road for the cops
Right.
to find, I mean, there's just a chaos to the action and to the storytelling that is very much in line. I agree with what you said, Ronald, that it's the smallness of it, and almost like the mundaneness of it within this world, that it's is David Michaud, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Wrote and directed this, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty confident piece of storytelling, and it is in that vein of just like crime. It's like that's the style of story that it is. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we just watched Thief for required viewing. I think it was your last pick, Steve. You're on kind of a crime wave here, but it's that kind of thing where like you get into the world of these crooks and what they're doing might seem grand or it might not, but that just living life on the edge and how suddenly things can turn. And someone like Ben Mendelsohn, who's such an unusual performer, and how they use his energy in this. He's not like a cool guy. He's not really like a scary guy. He's scary in that he's unpredictable. But
Right.
you don't look at him and think that he's going to be the worst of the bunch. But, it's a very subtle performance. And yet, by the end of the movie, you see him as this incredibly dangerous person. And I think the movie's full of little threads like that, where it's just... it's like a character piece on top of being a crime story.
For sure. Yeah, what always stood out to me is like what you just said about, I mean, with the character of Pope, Ben Mendelsohn's character. I think that is a big accomplishment of the movie too, is that, as the movie goes on, he is, I mean, so there's this idea of this being kind of like a smaller stakes or smaller crime. Like you said, it's a little like, what are they even, what's their enterprise really?
Yeah.
But amongst that, living in this world and, seeing how quickly everything escalates, and you kind of see how, specifically with the character of Pope, and even in like the final scenes of the movie, kind of how unhinged that character becomes as the movie goes along, and like what he does to Nikki, and like, there's these things that happen through the movie that just kind of like layer upon layer in terms of, he's not the scariest or the most intimidating character on the screen, like physically or anything like that, but his actions and like the suddenness of his actions are kind of what becomes scary, and kind of what make the efforts that they have in this criminal world, whether it's successful or not, like, is arguable. I guess at the end of the movie, you can discuss that. But I just think the character of Pope is like, he really stands out. I mean, Jackie Weaver was also nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mention that yet, but yeah, I mean, the notice that she got and the notice that Ben Mendelsohn specifically got, it's just it's some of the bigger takeaways. Guy Pearce, and Joe Edgerton like kind of had stuff going already in the Hollywood system, and have gone on to do, other movies that people know. And, even Guy Pearce specifically had a huge run before this movie. But I think having that name in it, and Joe Edgerton just still working in the Australian film industry and having a movie like this, which was a huge movie in Australia, or a pretty big movie in Australia, and, had tons of critical acclaim here. It just always stood out to me. Like, I feel like just it made an impression the first time I saw it, and I kind of felt the same rewatching it. It's just like the characters are so interesting, and that suddenness, like whether it was with, Baz, dying, or like, the actions that Pope takes throughout the movie. I just like how that kind of plays really, really efficiently into the pacing of the movie, I guess. But yeah, I'm glad you guys checked it out. And now you can go watch 6 seasons of the TNT show if you want more of the Codys.
I thought it was interesting that the lead character in this is sort of hard to read for so much of the movie.
Jay,
what's his name, Jay? Like you gradually come to see that that's like a feature of this character and this performance. But for the, he even has almost like an awkward posture and way of walking into a room.
So uncomfortable,
makes him a very odd character almost to follow amongst these really interesting, colorful characters.
Yeah.
But gradually there's like a weird power that he gains, so that by the time it's at the end, you recognize the, just what he's capable of too.
Sure.
What were we about to say, Ronald?
I forgot.
Okay.
I legitimately forgot.
I think you were about to ask me if the show is good.
Yeah,
maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
It seemed like you were saying. It seemed like you were saying how it, like, that was what you said. I haven't. I think I stopped watching it in season 4, but I like the show. I mean, I think it's got a great cast. Scott Speedman plays Boz, and Sean. Sean? Oh God, the guy from like Outside Providence.
Had to see or something.
Yeah. 90s. He was in the fact.
He was in Southland.
Yeah. He plays Pope. And he kind of has that same kind of vibe to him, where like he's kind of, definitely plays that character. And I mean, they it's a pretty good adaptation of. It's definitely way more slick, and it's like it's a beach town in California, and like they're kind of surfers, and it's a little more impressive in that way. So that level of it's a little different, but I mean, it's entertaining. It's a TNT show that ran for 6 seasons. I mean, it definitely has an audience. But the movie is far superior, obviously.
Well, yeah, I looked at the show a little bit after this, and I mean, it definitely seemed more TV slick, whatever.
For sure. Yeah. And Ellen Barkin's really good in it. She plays Smurf.
Yeah.
She's different version of Smurf than Jackie Weaver's take, but it's still like, she runs it all. That kind of vibe. But yeah, okay, cool. Well, thanks for checking that out, guys. John, is it your turn, right?
Yeah, I think I thought of this choice. There's actually, it's interesting. Earlier, you referred to the Top Gun sequel as a unicorn.
Yeah.
And our next episode is, as everyone knows, if they've been paying attention, it's our last episode
ever. Yeah.
So I thought, why not look at 1982 animated family film, The Last Unicorn?
Okay.
Oh,
sounds good.
This is one I remembered liking as a kid, and the more I've found out as an adult that it's like based on a beloved book, and it's like the movie is like has its fans, So it's just one that I think might be kind of fun to revisit. It is animated by the same people who did the famous, Rankin Bass, the people who did the televised version of The Hobbit, and some Lord of the Rings stuff. That, like, if you see the animation style, you'll be able to connect it to that, and maybe some other kind of television animation that they did. But it was a real attempt to do something theatrical that was, anytime someone wasn't Disney back in the day and they were doing a theatrical animated movie, it was kind of an attempt to do something on that scale. So, and if you look at the voice cast, there's some pretty good people in this. You've got your Jeff Bridges, Mia Farrow, Angela Lansbury, Alan Arkin.
Wow!
I remember some of the characters and some of the designs in this being really cool. So I actually kind of look forward to jumping back into the world of The Last Unicorn.
Okay.
I don't know if either one of you have any association with this movie at all.
I enjoy this movie a lot.
Oh, you did? All right, cool.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I do remember being a fan of the movie, and I love the book. I like, Sydney has the book. I've read it to her.
Oh, awesome.
But
Peter Beagle is the author's name, right?
Right. Yeah, I just looked it up too, to be sure. All right, cool. Well, I look forward to watching that. And I think so what's next? You want to get in? We're going to talk about Fall. Is that what you want to? That's like the new release that we were all able to see.
Yeah.
So last week, last Friday's one of the new releases was the Lionsgate film Fall, which basically is about two best friends climbing a 2,000-foot radio tower in the middle of the desert, or in the middle of presumably nowhere. And things go wrong, I guess, is the is the note on this one. It kind of feels like some kind of spiritual sequel to like Frozen, or like that's the one where they get stuck on the chairlift at the ski resort. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but that one, or like something like was it 40 meters down?
Yeah, definitely.
Like they kind of feels like it's in that. You could program these as a little like double triple feature maybe. But so this movie's in theaters right now. We had a chance to see a screener of it, so we all got to check it out. I want to talk about it a bit. So I don't know, what do you guys think of Fall?
Too long would be my main criticism, which is why I would say it misses the mark with what it does well, which is getting those vertiginous those shots in that I imagine if someone has vertigo, this movie would be awful for them to watch, because they do a good job of evoking that sense of whether you're climbing up a ladder or scaling up a tower, or whether you're dangling or jumping or swinging or hitting or whatever, you are constantly aware of the precarious height that these characters are at.
Right.
I mean, it's like you're not really set up to necessarily like these characters because they're like thrill seekers doing an inherently dangerous thing, but I think the movie tries to make us get invested with some like tragic background stuff that personally for me felt like a hell of a lot to try to pack into the first 10 minutes in terms of like tragedy and alcoholism and family problems and it just was a lot to pile on before the women get to the tower that is the concept of the movie. And then from there, I think there is like a lean, mean version of this that could have moved a little faster, that might have kept me more invested. But by the time it got to, I don't know, just knowing, I mean, you know, I don't know how long it is. It's like an hour and 45 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But
barely.
it feels like it should be like an 80-minute movie or something, just based on the pace and the speed of it. It lingers just long enough that certain things can kind of seem sort of ridiculous. And like there's a moment near the end where she does something to feed herself that really feels like that we've gone into some other world. Like, what is this, an episode of Primal? But I think in terms of that again, what it does well, you know, and that's why I'm saying my criticism kind of leading with that is that I think if it hadn't had those kind of pacing issues, and maybe if the characters hadn't been sort of obnoxious in this weird way, and if that tragedy hadn't been forced on me, all that felt so amped up that it stood in the way of the very simple concept that you're talking about, Steve, which is like just a movie where people are in a situation that's hard to get out of.
Right.
And you're sitting there trying to think, how are they going to survive? And the movie does a pretty good job of doing that thing where, oh, these are the resources they have. These are the odds they're up against. This is the timeline they're on. That stuff was reasonably well handled. But I kept finding myself going, why am I getting kind of bored in the midst of this? Or why do I just feel like it's dragging out so long? And also personally, none of the sort of stuff they did to try to deepen the plot, like there's some reveals about character that occur in this movie, none of that stuff really clicked for me in the way that watching someone climb up a ladder and we see a close-up of a screw that's about to shake out of it. Like that shit worked on
That's
me.
what it is. That's
the
what
rest
it is.
of it really felt like it was trying for some connection that it didn't make with me personally.
Right. It almost feels like the movie could have just been that. Like I'm straight in line with everything you just said. Like I feel like all the stuff on the tower, any action on the tower, all that stuff worked really well for me. But yeah, it was like imagining if this movie was 80-90 minutes and it just literally starts with them embarking on this adventure, and it just, you know, they're just on the tower. All the other stuff just seems so just, I don't know, ineffective, and just like really slows the movie down for me. But yeah, I'm pretty much in line with everything you just said. I do think some of those sequences, like, so uncomfortable to watch, like somebody dangling off the side just to get a photo, like a selfie, like that character's need for that and confidence, you know, obviously, like, just, oh god, it's so hard to watch those scenes. And but yeah, it kind of fills in, it fits into that, like, that B movie, like, just shit goes wrong. If you're looking for that kind of thing, I would probably say check it out. But yeah, it's definitely way too long. But there's probably enough there to probably at least entertain you, I think. What do you think, Ronald?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I always complain about the length of movies. So yeah, I mean, this thing was a half an hour too long. The motive.
Like, I read somewhere that it was like 80 minutes. So when I was watching it, I was like, wait a minute, this movie's not over yet?
Yeah,
I read a review that referred to it being 70 minutes long. That I wonder.
Yeah,
if
I think maybe I read
something
similar
that went around,
and I was like, maybe that was a different cut or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It was weird.
No, it was lengthy, and I think what I wanted was the character that's like a, I mean, what the young people say is a clout chaser. I think I would have understood her more if her desire to want to be famous or wanted was explained a little better. You know, like, I think sometimes I need a little bit more to suspend my disbelief. And the things that she was doing were so ridiculous at a point that I was like, I don't know if I like this person.
right?
And you know, that's the problem.
True.
Like,
That's true.
it was like, I don't know if I like her. I don't know if she is a logical person.
And you're supposed to like her.
Yes. And then when everything unfolds and the twist comes in, and I'm like, what? Were you giving me clues about this? Like, what? I mean, what? But I tell you what, no, I would have guessed that. I don't know anyone that could watch that movie and have guessed that twist in the movie. And I'm not talking about the thing that she says. I mean, like, the twist.
No, I know what you're talking about.
What the hell?
There was a visual. The reveal of that was something that made you think about it. But once once, like, you didn't question it once you thought you were seeing what was real, and then
Right.
later when they revealed, like, it did have a little bit of juice to it, but it felt like just one more thing they were throwing in to try to make this kind of thin story feel like it had something to offer, you know. And again, it felt more like an interesting idea than something that really landed emotionally or with a character punch.
For sure.
But I found myself at the beginning just going, okay, I know there's only 2 characters in this thing. I know the story. I kind of was like, there should be 4 people climbing up this tower, and we should see them fall. Let the tragedy, take it out of the background, and bring it into the foreground. Because I do think that climbing up the tower, all that danger was working on me to the point where I thought, oh, I wish I was thinking that one of these characters could go at any moment. And I just think with 2 people in a nearly 2-hour-long movie, you're not thinking they can go at any moment. You realize you're in for this character play that they're doing between the 2 of them. And you're right, Ronald. There was something kind of obnoxious about the thrill seeker character, and there was something kind of annoying about the friend with the tragic past too. I don't know. They both were a little bit aggravating, which again might be the point in some movies, but I don't think this movie was trying to do that slasher movie thing of like setting up characters that you want to see bad things happen to.
Yeah. Did you know that the boyfriend, Dan, is Cuba Gooding's son?
Yes.
You knew that?
Yeah, he was in the Scream. He was in Scream that came out this year.
I didn't know that.
I knew I recognized him from something recent.
I did not know that, man.
Yeah, and
I know who he was. I've literally watched almost everything that he's in.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was Cuba Gooding's.
That's funny. Yeah. I didn't like I read about that when Scream came out. It was like he was on a podcast or something. He was talking about his dad, and somebody said who his dad was, and I was like, oh shit. But yeah. But it's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, man. He has a bright career ahead of him, man. I'm looking forward to seeing him in other stuff.
One thing I wanted to mention before we move off of Fall, it seems like the biggest story that kind of went out, that got publicized for this movie, the weekend of its release, was basically this idea of deep fake vubbing with like vocal overdubbing. That apparently when they shot this movie, there was like 30 plus F-bombs in the movie, and it was like an R rating. And when Lionsgate acquired it, a big factor in them acquiring it was that it could be cut to PG-13, and it really couldn't be cut because of the budget and how they shot it and all this stuff. So they went in, and I guess the company, the director, I think is a founder or a CEO or has some stake in a company that does like AI, deep fake, like just CG stuff. I don't know the details of it, but I was reading an article basically saying that there were like 30 plus instances of the characters, you know, dropping F-bombs, and that they had to use deep fake technology to overdub and, you know, change it just slightly so that they, every time you see somebody saying freaking in the movie, and I started paying attention to it by the end of it, with the friend character, who I think is the you know, the hitter that was probably saying it the most in the movie,
right, the dropper of F-bombs.
I kept like thinking like, oh my god, like it looks so good, but like I can kind of I'm seeing it, like it's slightly off, but like, and she was doing an interview saying like she saw the movie at a screening and like didn't even realize they'd overdubbed her, and like that she didn't even realize it got changed. Like she thought she was saying that in the movie, which is just, I mean, again, a step towards like craziness in terms of what they can do with this shit. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that they can, like, you know, not just overdub it, but like have it, her face change, you know, like with AI in the shot. It's just, it's wild. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's Fall. It's in theaters now. I don't know what the plan is, if they have some sort of window for like PVOD or anything like that, but I have a feeling it'll probably be available in PVOD in some form or fashion in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, so I'd say check it out. I thought it was entertaining enough while long, but if you're into that kind of thing, like where you're looking for a movie like Frozen, which I would check that out probably first. That one's actually really good. Or 40 Meters Down. They're kind of in the same family. Yeah,
the Shallows.
Yeah, exactly. Like those feelings. Yeah. All right, cool. Did you guys want to, I guess, go through anything else that we've seen recently? Anything that you guys have seen over the last week you wanted to mention?
I think I saw something you saw. I saw Bodies.
Right. What do you think of that?
You know, I think it had like it gets messy kind of in the middle, and it loses a little bit of its like like it's clearly much more interested in doing like a social satire of sort of influencer culture and Gen Z obsession with social media. It's much more interested in that than it is in being scary, or even doing like a straight kind of Agatha Christie, watching people get picked off, or the murderer has to be someone in this room kind of thing. I mean, it reminds you of some of those things, but it's much more invested in kind of taking apart these characters as kind of caricatures of the sort of tech obsessed Gen Z folks. And I don't know, some of that stuff as a Gen X guy, some of that stuff felt like, oh, this is a little bit more mean spirited than it is funny. But I do think what worked for me was, in the setup, in the opening stages of this, I thought they set up an interesting kind of quirky bunch of characters. I thought that some of the scenes of going around this big house in the dark, there was something effectively scary if you've ever been in a big house in the dark. In fact, some friends of mine and I, one of my friends had a big house that we all lived in for a while, and we would sometimes turn off all the lights and play hide and seek in the house. And it was really fun, and it was scary, and it was like you would get freaked out if you were the seeker. You'd be going into these totally dark rooms and kind of knowing the rooms, but knowing there might be a shadow over there or what. It made me think of that, just how being in a house where suddenly there's no light, and you have to search or you have to get around. It's just a scary idea, and some of those parts of the movie were effective. Just the idea of going into a room and like maybe tripping over something and then realizing what it is, or going into a room and not really knowing what might be behind you. But I think very quickly I could tell that the movie was doing sort of a spin on a weird, like I said, almost dark comedy whodunit kind of thing rather than a slasher thing. I kept wanting to be afraid of some presence that the movie was really kind of telling you all along. There's not really like a slasher type presence. It's much more about the way these characters are treating each other. That said, there were some effective moments, and I think that like just the general evocation of a bunch of people getting together and getting fucked up and shit coming out, saying things maybe you shouldn't say. I thought some of that stuff was well done. And maybe when the characters aren't acting like caricatures, I thought there were some kind of funny moments. But I do think that by the time I was 2/3 in or 3/4 in, and you're at that point where normally in a movie like this, you have a real sense of like who your main character is, who you're rooting for. This movie doesn't give you that. And again, I think that's part of the point of the satire. But it left me feeling like once it got to the end, it's like, oh, now it's getting to the point of this whole thing. And like the last 5-10 minutes feel like it ties it all together. But before that, I felt like it was getting kind of increasingly messy. What did you think, Steve?
I don't think I liked it that much. I mean, like I kind of went in, I guess the part of the want for a slasher movie.
Yeah, I wanted it to be a slasher too.
And the cast, I think in general was actually really good. And I think even parts of the script is pretty tight, it's pretty strong and tight. But like, I just feel like even the take on the Gen Z influencer, even the satirizing of that generation or that cohort, like I just felt like it made it really hard for me to really like the movie or even care about anybody in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is a challenge to really care what happens next if I don't really care about anybody in the movie, which I think in essence is like a part of the satire.
Right. It is
a part of what they're saying is that like, for all they have to say, there really isn't a lot being said in the movie, and like from the characters at least. And I don't know, I was definitely disappointed, I gotta say, in this. I had heard a lot of really positive things. We didn't get to check it out. I think it was at South by when we were doing that home option, and I was hoping we could have seen that, but we didn't have a chance. So, but I'd heard that very positive things from a couple critics that I follow. But yeah, this one didn't do it for me. I can't give this a recommend on my end. I would say if you're interested in checking it out, maybe an at home option, but I just couldn't connect with any of the characters. And I think by the time I was 3/4 of the way through it, I was just kind of had a feeling of what was happening at the end of the movie. And at that point I was like, I just don't know that I really care anymore about it.
Yeah, it's just not as interesting as a cool spin on a murder mysteries type slasher type thing with these characters in this milieu. Could have been really fun.
It could have been.
It wasn't interested in updating that kind of thing It was much more focused on like, yeah, as we both said, that generational commentary.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is a fairly funny kind of dark humor to the way things resolve when you find out what's really going on, but it's like way too little too late in terms of
For sure.
the juice you get out of it. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's in theaters now. Bodies, bodies, bodies. Ronald, did you have anything you want to? I mean, I have a couple of movies I'm going to just run off in a moment here, but what have you seen that you want to mention before we get to that?
Before we get to the quick Ritz.
The quick rinse.
Um,
Did you see anything else?
no, I don't think so. Maybe you when you rattle some off, I'll think of it, but
I'll
I
jog
don't
your
think I
memory.
did. Yeah.
But before I mention the movies I've seen, I just want to. It just now came to the States last week. But any parents out there, even if you're not a parent, you just want an amazing animated series. Bluey on Disney Plus is like, I have kids, but even if I didn't have kids, I hope I would find this show. It's one of my favorite shows, like, period. It's an Australian show. It came over to Disney Plus. The third season's on there now. I know it's been out in the interwebs for some time now because it aired back in I think in the winter in Australia or in the fall even. But just an amazing show. Like, if you're looking for something to watch with your kids, I have younger kids, but again, I probably watch this show at this point without my kids, and I'm not gonna lie, I do. But I just wanted to mention Bluey is out there. If you haven't ever heard of it, please find it. It's just perfection. But in terms of movies, I got to go see some movies in theater last week. Finally, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was one of them. I also checked out David Leitch's Bullet Train, starring a ton of people that we know: Brad Pitt, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry. Sandra Bullock pops up for a little bit in it. There's some other fun cameos in the movie. I don't know if all of them have been in the trailer, so I'm going to refrain from mentioning a lot of other names because I can't remember. I didn't watch too many of the trailers for this, so I don't want to make any or spoil any cool cameos that do come up in the movie. But I had a lot of fun with Bullet Train. I feel like it's getting hit hard critically. I did get to watch it in IMAX, which was pretty cool. I thought it looked great on the IMAX screen, and the sound mixing was amazing. All the action and the stunt work is just really top notch, especially because David Leitch comes from that world. Um, Brad Pitt's great. I think the real kind of standout is the whole dynamic between Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry. They play brothers in the movie, Tangerine and Lemon, respectively, and they're just like hired assassins, and that's basically the story of the whole movie. Is that they're on a train, they're all after something, and there's some twists and turns and plot developments that kind of make it a bigger story than I think we start the movie off thinking it is, which is simply that Brad Pitt has to retrieve a briefcase and deliver it somewhere. It's a little long, and I had this feeling walking out of the theater that, like, for a movie that I think it's been budgeted at $80 million, which is kind of not crazy, but it's not in that lower range where I would maybe expect some of it. But, like, I feel like there were certain parts of the movie where the CG just kind of stood out as being kind of weak to me. Everything in the train obviously looks amazing, and all the fighting that's happening in there looks great. But I guess, I don't know if it's COVID stuff or, a lot of digital just work, green screen stuff. There's a handful of sequences that stood out to me as kind of looking a little distractingly bad in terms of CG. Doesn't matter to most people. I think if you're going to this movie, you're just looking for a fun action movie. It kind of feels like a little Tarantino-y, a little Guy Ritchie-y, but with the action and the stunt work that Leitch and, like, Chad Stahelski have come to be known for. And it's Brad Pitt doing a cool, fun action movie, which is a bonus for me. So I would definitely recommend checking out Bullet Train if any of that interests you. I thought it was a lot of fun. And just a lot of great characters in the movie that, again, fun cameos. I won't spoil or mention anybody else beyond the ones I did, because I think those may be the only ones in the trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bullet Train was a lot of fun. What else? The Bodies, the Bullet Train, Fall. Oh, I finally saw Nope, which I'm not going to go on too far with it because you guys talked about it a bit already. But I kind of love Nope.
Yes.
I don't know if, like, I pulled back a little bit from people that were maybe a little more mixed on it, or just the time between me seeing it and it coming out was I could kind of, like, slow down a little bit because again, we talked about like it's probably one of my highest anticipated movies of the year, but I do regret not seeing it on an IMAX or a Prime or a Dolby screen in its first couple weeks. I was hoping to see it on IMAX still because some theaters had it in IMAX still last week, but Bullet Train was in some. And then again, I mentioned earlier in the show, Top Gun took over the one that I went to that was playing at the time that I saw Nope. Because the theater I saw it in was, it's a nice theater, but it just wasn't a great presentation. But even still, you got everything you guys said, in terms of the spectacle, um,
creature design,
just the characters. Kaluuya and Kiki Palmer together were just I fucking love them together. I don't know that I've enjoyed a scene. Maybe one or two stand out that even come close, but the scene in the movie when they realized the cinematographer had brought a hand cranking camera and they kind of do that like high five. I just like that was just like one of the most joyous scenes in the movie like all year for me so far. Just in terms of those characters that you've been that far into the movie with and their chemistry and like they both just light up and have that sibling moment. It kind of is a little throwaway moment, but it really was great. But yeah, I don't know. I love Nope. I can't wait to watch it again. It kind of has avoided this the PVOD window that a lot of Universal movies have come out on. I'm kind of surprised. Especially because it didn't do like gangbusters, at the box office like we were maybe hoping it would. So I hopefully I'll be able to watch it again soon at home, which I'm actually probably will be a better experience in terms of presentation than the theater I saw it in, unfortunately. But yeah, I can't wait to watch it again to kind of dissect it because I feel like that always happens with his movies. There's so much going on and there's so much intentional layering and, to the plot, to the script, to the characters that I'm just excited to watch it again. But yeah, I really, really loved the film.
It makes me happy. I'm glad you liked it.
Dude, I'm so happy that it makes you happy because it made me very happy to finally see it before it left theaters and to support Jordan Peele because I fucking love him and I just think that 3 for 3 in my book and first time in a long time. I forget what the stat was and I can't remember who it was prior, but the first 3 features grossing over 100 million, genre stuff, just like it's a huge accomplishment. Not to mention an Oscar in there for him. So it's crazy. And I can't wait to see what it does next, obviously. So I think that was everything I think I wanted to mention. Did that bring up anything in your mind, Ronald? Anything that you've seen?
Did I talk about Child's Play last week?
Yes. Oh, actually, did you say it on the podcast or was that in our thread? I can't remember. But I mean, mention it again. I don't know,
Okay.
It won't hurt.
The Scream Factory release of the Child's Play trilogy is like out of this world. I just saw the first one and it's just, you think that a movie that old that wouldn't look as beautiful as it did. And it just was just a nice movie, man. You forget how crazy off the rails the first one. And then it just gets weirder from there. But this is the most grounded version of a doll killing people out of the series. And it has this like weird, it has such a fun feel to it because it's a slow burn, man. Like for like a half an hour of the movie, you do not see Chucky. And then when Chucky comes, it's like, oh man, he's gonna murder everybody. And he does not stop. It's like nonstop chaos. He kills the guy that he used to know that may have he kills random people, man.
The voodoo guy who helps him out with the spell and everything.
Yeah, the voodoo guy. He kills a voodoo guy. Doesn't he kill like a past partner or something that he worked with? Like
he's a little asshole.
He's a little asshole, man.
Yeah. And he loves it.
But it's worth checking out. It's a fun movie.
I'll definitely check that out because I love that series in general. That whole franchise is pretty fun.
It's crisp, man. Like there's a legit argument for getting physical media now, man. Like it's like the 4K upscale, the 4K versions of these movies, they're as close to the theatrical release that you're ever going to see, which is the coolest part about it. You put it on a big screen, it doesn't get blurry. It's super sharp. You pause it, it looks like a still high-end photo. It's just nice to be able to see the movies that we've kind of come up to love in that quality, man. And they're talking about Tarantino stuff later this year. Reservoir Dogs is supposed to come out on 4K this year. So I'm gonna physically buy that. I'm like, some things I just download. I'm gonna buy the shit out of that. So
yeah, I guess the Child's Play mentioned, just as a reminder, if anybody hasn't watched the Chucky series on USA Sci-Fi, I think a teaser is out for the second season, but that second season's coming out this fall, and I think it starts in early October. But just in the Child's Play of it all, if you haven't watched the first season, I personally I thought the first season was a blast. So if you like Child's Play, that first season is on USA Sci-Fi. I think whatever. I don't know how they have a streaming. I don't know what streaming platform they're on, but I'm excited to see the second season, very much so, and definitely recommend checking out the first. Did you guys, either of you, ever watch it?
I watched about 3 episodes of it, and I just need to finish it. It was really fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah, I think you would really like it, John. Maybe you could check it out.
Well, I've been watching those movies kind of for the first time recently, so I could see how now I would have more of an interest and an investment in seeing kind of the rebooted take on it.
It's doing like that. It's doing that thing that like Cobra Kai is doing, like where it's its own thing, and there may be some legacy commentary, like in terms of the characters. But then as it gets through the season, you can see that it's definitely tying back into the movies. So like, characters from the film franchise have a stronger presence as the first season goes. And for the teaser for the second season, you can see that they're bringing even more characters or from the franchise in. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't have anything else to mention.
I think that's a show.
Yeah, that is a show. Next week, I think we're going to be skipping next week. I'm going to be out of town on a small little vacation. But we'll be back. We need more time to talk about and to develop 350, obviously.
Yeah.
So we're taking the extra beat. Not at all because of my time away. It's really just for the attention that the episode deserves. Yeah, for sure. But in that time, it deserves.
It's got to be something special, right?
In the meantime, movieschmovie.com is the website. You can go back and listen to prior episodes there right on that website, or you can jump into whatever podcast platform you may have on your phone, tablet, computer, whatever it might be. Take your pick, subscribe. If the one you pick has an option to leave a review or a rating or anything like that, please do that. It'll help the podcast. It'll help us out finding new listeners and expanding our audience, which is all we're hoping to do with the podcast. Talking amongst the three of us is really the joy, at least for me, and I feel like you guys probably feel the same. But
yeah, same.
If we can get some more people, more ears involved in this whole party, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So do that if you can. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks for 350. And again, required viewing if you're playing along. John's pick, The Last Unicorn. What year would that come out? Do you know?
1982.
82. What a good year. What a good year. But we'll see you in 2 weeks, guys. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.